I'm somewhat sure this isn't the first time that I was made aware of the Shockman series. I guess the first or second game didn't appeal to me when I was first offered keys for them, but now that I've played through Shockman 3, I definitely want to play the other ones. What got me right from the start was how great the animation intro was. This game was originally released in 1992, and it's not as if all animation back then was a muddy mess like some low-budget OVA, but I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw. Thankfully, the intro wasn't the only cutscene to feature anime. Later portions of the game featured plenty more and I was hooked. It also helped that the scenes featured voice acting. It was in Japanese, but seeing as how I've seen plenty of anime, that's an understatement, over the years, and it was subbed, I was fine with that. I was left thinking that there must be other games like this one that feature great visuals. Even during regular gameplay, the pixel artwork looked great. It's no Symphony of the Night, but at the same time, it's worth recalling that this is a game from the early 90s. Shockman 3's music also stood out to me. At one point I was thinking of playing with headphones on for Spotify or movies/shows, but I'm glad I didn't do that. Instead, I was met with upbeat music that was varied. Simply put, I loved it. It's no Dr. Wily's Castle theme from the Mega Man games, but the music helped elevate the overall experience of Shockman 3. Once I was actually playing, I was surprised to see how many options were available. I shouldn't be surprised, seeing as how re-releases of old games feature quality of life improvements, but I was still caught off guard. I was surprised to see that it was possible to use cheats from the beginning. I also noticed that save states were usable, and I assumed that they'd be helpful, but I didn't use them at all. It took me a bit of time to accept that this would be necessary, but I eventually started to use the rewind feature during harder parts of Shockman 3. It's because I wanted to go through the game relying on my skills as a player. I was able to get through a decent chunk of Shockman 3 without having to rely on cheats or workarounds, but I eventually needed the extra help. Surprisingly, using the rewind feature was easier than I thought it would be. In-game, I was able to rewind pretty far back. Most of the time, it was just to go back to having one extra health, or if I'd been killed, to be able to continue. I was surprised to see that even after the game over screen popped up, I could still rewind myself to moments before that happened. You could say that the rewind feature was overpowered, but it helped in getting the job done. I didn't use the fast forward feature as often as I did with the rewind. It's mainly because I noticed that it made some sections harder than they needed to be. For the most part, I used fast forward to get through repetitive sections faster than if I'd been playing at normal speed. This happened during especially problematic moments in Shockman 3. Since I knew what to expect, I could play on fast forward while avoiding damage or especially tedious moments. At times I even used it during boss fights. It's because there were multiple bosses that moved much slower than I thought they would. When I fast forwarded through sections of their fights, I was able to concentrate on reaching moments of comfort. Shockman 3 features levels, but what really surprised me was how it flowed seamlessly from area to area. I assume that it's because this is a PC Engine game, but it was nice to not have to deal with loading or black screens. This helped because I found it easy to keep playing, not only because of the quality of life improvements that I previously mentioned, but also because of small details such as this one made it so that I didn't have to deal with serious interruptions. Despite having greatly enjoyed Shockman 3, I did experience issues with it. The first one was that the game would freeze at one specific moment. This happened over and over again. I assumed that I would have to start from the beginning of the game, and I was thinking of just moving on from it, but then I went back to the options menu. I saw that I could select which stage to begin from, so I went back to the one where I froze. This wasn't the kind of issue that would leave me thinking that it makes it so that others shouldn't play, but it's for sure annoying to deal with. To get a bit more in depth with the gameplay, I loved how fast-paced it was. It's not as if it's Sonic, but you could still move through the levels pretty quickly if you knew what you were doing. I liked that because it went well with the music that was playing, and I enjoyed the pace it set. That also helped me realize that I could play through the game and review it sooner rather than later. There are some games out there where I simultaneously want to take my time and speed through it, mainly because of how much I'm enjoying it. But from the start, I was told that getting through Shockman 3 wouldn't take long. I only played as the male character, so I can't share my thoughts in regards to the female character and any possible differences between the two. I recently spoke to someone about Shockman 3 and I told them that it was like playing Mega Man X as Zero. From what I recall, Zero moves much faster, but it was an easy comparison to make because of the heavy emphasis on hacking and slashing enemies while moving quickly. I liked the enemy variety in Shockman 3 for two reasons. 1. It made it so that combat didn't get stale. 2. I got to enjoy more of the game's artwork. I thought it was funny how the Shockman sprite work wasn't as detailed as some of the enemies. Besides the intro and cutscenes I've already mentioned, the enemies also helped Shockman 3's visuals shine. It's not even just because of the variety and different colors/designs used. I also like that their shapes and sizes mattered. I have no idea the mentality that the original devs had for this game back in the early 90s, but I like this approach. What's funny is that due to the size difference between enemies, you'd think that the hitboxes would be better taken care of. I could see someone saying, well, the different shapes and sizes of the enemies makes it difficult to have more accurate hitboxes, but at times this bothered me. It's because I felt that the enemy hitboxes were off. I'd clearly see that I hit an enemy, but the game wouldn't register that. Due to this issue, some boss fights were longer than they needed to be because of having small chances to hit a particular enemy. It's how I've said in previous reviews. At times I felt that the game was playing me rather than the other way around. Thankfully, the quality of life improvements made it so that this wasn't a complete game-breaking issue. Still, that leaves me thinking about players that had to play this game as is back in the early 90s. You could say that due to the popularity of arcades back then, the dev mentality was to more or less bring the arcade experience home. While some players preferred that, I could see myself getting frustrated over dying because of unfair aspects of the game and having to restart from the beginning. Simply put, without the quality of life improvements, this would have been a much harder game. Shockman 3 managed to deliver the goods for me in more ways than one. Seeing as how I'm a massive anime fan, I greatly enjoyed the overall artwork. That part of the game was done at such a great level that I was left wanting to experience more PC Engine games that are similar to Shockman 3, or even better. The team responsible for this modern re-release is watching this review. Feel free to contact me so that I have the opportunity to review more games like this. If you're a gamer that has much more experience than I do with the PC Engine, feel free to make recommendations so that I can know which games to look out for. The vibe I get from the PC Engine based off of this one game is that it managed to offer a certain charm that left players with positive impressions to this day. It's arguable that each console/era of gaming has managed to accomplish this, but I believe fewer rather than many are able to leave a huge impression on players, such as the Sega Dreamcast. How do you feel about modern re-releases of very retro games? Do quality of life improvements that lead to easier gameplay make you think less of it? Are there any retro games that still impress you to this day? If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much for watching.